Hello and welcome to my Full Stop channel. Today I'm going to talk about how to replace the transistor in a Snap Circuits NPN transistor that is broken, isn't working anymore. Typically on this channel I cover photography. I write camera guides such as this one, Nikon Z8 Experience. I write camera guides for the latest Nikon and Canon mirrorless cameras. But today we're going to be talking about snap circuits. My daughter and I were using one of the snap circuit kits, the 3D illumination kit that we had gotten from our library. It's a really nice kit. And it allows you to make those very big 3D structures, such as houses with alarms and lights. And it has a lot of the components that you'll find in the other Snap Circuits kits, and some additional ones, such as the light tunnel. So when we were working on some of these projects, we discovered that in some of them that use the NPN transistor, the light tunnel wasn't working very brightly, or the siren wasn't going off, or the lights were really dim. So we tested all the different components to make sure we hadn't blown anything out. We thought maybe the photo transistor wasn't working properly, but we used projects that just used simple components so we could narrow down which ones were and weren't working. We found out the speaker was working, the photo transistor was working, the switches were working, the light tunnel was working. So what it came down to basically was the NPN transistor didn't seem to be working. So here's an example of one of the projects with an NPN transistor that is actually working. This is project 31 called Light and Sound. So I'll put it on for a minute. It's going to be pretty loud probably. Okay, so that one's working properly. When our NPN transistor wasn't working properly, we weren't getting the siren and all the lights. Oh, here's an example of what you can do with these 3D structures. Here's one of the 3D structures. So you can build like a house that would have an alarm system and lights in it. So that's one of the great things about the 3D illumination kit. Okay, so I watched some videos and found out that you can indeed fix the NPN transistor. And one of them goes into a little bit of detail about how to do it. In one of the videos, oh, this is a different type. This one you can't open up. Okay. This is an older one, and this I think is a newer one because it had the little cover cap over the transistor. So I already have it open. I was going to show you with this one, but I discovered this one does not have the tabs. So this one is probably glued shut and you can't really open it up successfully. Here's an example, the U3 that was glued shut. There's no tabs, so once you pry it open, you can see all the components inside, and that one has a transistor too. And you could probably, if you're able to fix it, you could probably glue it back together, but you risk cracking the plastic and breaking various parts. So with this one of the newer NPN transistors, I was able to open it up. One of the videos showed that you file down those little red tabs there to help you get this open, because you can see it has two tabs here and two tabs. And you want to be careful not to break the tabs and break the little plastic part on top of it. But what I did, I discovered you didn't have to shave down those little tabs. All I did was I started with a very small flat screwdriver and I wedged it in there. And then I put in the next size and wedged it in there. And then I did that over on the other side too. I stuck two of them in there and then used the biggest ones and was able to pry it apart and open it up without breaking it, without sanding down those tabs. So once you get it open, this clear tab would be on, and what you would do, you would just have to use these little screwdrivers to push those little tabs and pop this off. And then what we did was we used our flush cutter and we snipped a couple places where the transistor is, and then just move these wires up and pull it out. So you can find lots of videos and articles that will show you how to test a transistor to make sure it's working or not. And before I took this apart, I tested it and found that it wasn't working. So I wanted to test, before I put a new one in, I want to test it and make sure it's working. So what you do is you set your multimeter to diode mode, which is this little symbol right above the ohm, and then select to make sure you're on diode mode, which is up there. And to test an NPN transistor, what you do is, so the Snap Circuit NPN transistor uses the S8050 NPN transistor, which is very easy to find. I just went to AliExpress, ordered 50 of them for $1. If you get a $10 order, just find a bunch of little things you need, little $1, $2 things you need. And if you get up to $10, you get free shipping, and they promise it 2 weeks shipping. It actually came in 1 week. Okay, so the diagram of the S8050 is, we have the emitter, the base collector, and here it is in symbol form, which is also shown on the snap circuit piece. The collector, the base, and the emitter. So I want to test this new one before we put it in. Oh, this is something we used to replace the transistor in the snap circuit to see if that really was the problem. So instead of snapping this transistor in, what we did was we built the circuit, and then we used this as the transistor. I plugged it into that female end, and then I used the male ends and looked at my diagram. I have the collector, the base, and the emitter, and so I substituted them for where they would be here, and we tested it, and sure enough, a new transistor worked just fine. Okay, so to test our new transistor, you can test 5 different connections. So you connect the positive part of the multimeter to the base. So here my base is the middle one. So positive to base, negative to emitter. Oh, let me get my multimeter in sight so we can see that also. Positive to base, negative to emitter, and we get 0.71. And it says with the NPN transistor, it should be somewhere between 0.45 and 0.9 volts, and what we have is 0.7, so that's correct. Positive to base, negative to collector. So here's our diagram. You can see the collector is on the right and the base is in the middle. 0.709, which is in between our 0.45 and 0.90 values. And then you can test the positive to the emitter, the negative to the base, and you should get the 0.0L, which is correct. Positive to collector, negative to base, you should get that same reading, the 0.0L. And positive to collector, negative to emitter, 0.0L, and that's correct. We're also getting that. So here's what we're showing here, and all of our values came out correct. So we know this is a working transistor. So we can put this one into the snap circuit. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to keep my diagram here to make sure I get everything in the right place. And so we have the collector, base, and emitter. Collector, base, emitter. So let's look at this one. Flat side is facing this way. So if we put it in, it should be, wait a minute, that's not what we did. Put it in through the small opening in the middle. Those bigger openings are for the protective cap. Okay, so the base, the middle one, is going to go up. The collector, which is over here on the right, is going to go to the collector, and the emitter, which is over here on the left, is going to go to the emitter. And so I'm going to solder this all together and then come back and test it in the snap circuit, see if it works. GoPro, stop recording.